Melissa, I hope you're not in Florida, that's all I can say. Well, I appreciate you all taking the time certainly to come here today, and a lot of familiar faces in the room. We've been working really hard at the state level on Indiana's K-12 system. And I'll start by saying that change is never easy, and I like to say change is great as long as it's you and not me. And changing a system that has 1 million students in it, 292 schools, and I don't know, 65,000 teachers, somewhere in that range, 65,000. There's a lot going on when we look at this thing. And so some might argue that we pushed a little bit, and we probably have a little bit of background of doing that at the State House. But I'll tell you, the diploma structure, actually, the first cohort will fall off the end in the 28-29 school year. So there's a year from right now, the 24-25 school year, starting 25-26 is when it really goes into play, it begins. And so I have a great deal of information, but I decided to just consolidate it down to give you a view of what we are currently and what the future diploma potentially will look like. We're in the middle of public comment at this point in time, and by December the 12th, I think, is the date that we set, that it had to be set in stone. So after public comment, the state board will put the finishing touches on it and vote through it, and it'll go out the other side. So as I said, change is never easy, I don't think, especially this is massive for us. But I will say this, we're the first one in the United States that has tackled this issue, and I think we've come to a place where if you choose not to change, you could choose not necessarily to change. I wouldn't recommend that, but you could choose not to change. The diploma structure, if you look at this first page, current Core 40 diploma is listed, and then the future diploma, or at least basically what it's going to look like, has changed a little bit, adds a couple credits. You can see some of the differences. I won't go over it. You can look at it for yourself. But I will say this, those of us who have a little more gray on our heads in this room, grew up in Northwest Michigan, and I purposely printed my transcripts from high school. I didn't bring them with me today because I don't want you to see my grade point averages or my grade. No, I'm kidding. But it's identical to what we produce today, not only in Michigan, but in Indiana and many states. And that, when I say that, I'm not saying that we changed for change's sake, but what are we doing is my question. And so the current diploma is at least 70 years old in some respects, right? And so, and it may be even longer than that. I can't put my finger on it totally, but it's been around for a long time. And so I'll share, Jason shared this with me the other day, and I called the author of it to ask him if I could share this comment about the comparison. Let's see, he compares, what is it, can you iterate it? Yeah.
Yeah, so this is
Telegraph.
So Aaron Black, who's superintendent now at Liberty Perry, was at Randolph Eastern Schools. I've heard him last year talk a lot about that we can no longer deliver a telegraph education to a TikTok generation. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. Just think about where our kids are today, and that's Aaron's comment.
Yeah, and that's not promoting TikTok by any means, because we all probably have our thoughts about that. Maybe the kids don't, but I think we do. So we are pushing it a little bit, but again, if you look at the second page on this thing, schools can pretty much, your diploma is going to change some, but there are seals that go with it. And the graduation pathways are either they enroll, they go to college, enrollment in higher ed, they go off to employment, or they go enlist in the military. That's the three pathways. We did that. This whole thing started probably in 2016, I would imagine. And I think 17, we actually created those graduation pathways. And now we're putting the icing on the cake, honestly. So this has not been a decision that was not studied and not looked at for a long time. I had a piece of legislation in 2018 that did something very similar, But I needed about $10 million to go along with it, and it failed because they didn't want to fund it, nor did I do a good job of presenting it and getting it out to the ground. So really, what we're looking for at the state level, I guess, to drill down to what the changes would really look like. First of all, it's wise to talk about where we are today in achievement in the K-12 space. We're not doing all that well, not just Indiana, but the United States of America. And so why? I can't tell you all the pieces. One thing I learned being in the General Assembly is there is no silver bullet to anything, but there are things that are weighted more heavily that will make a greater impact in a very short period of time versus everything, right? Trying to accomplish everything with just one effort. And so that said, we have about a 53% college going rate in the state of Indiana. And that is not all that good. 53% is not good. The completion rate takes that down a ways as well. And so if we go back, we used to be 63% and somewhere around 21 or 21. COVID had an incredible impact on education. And I'm sure if you ask any of the educators in the room, it changed things some. And that 10% drop is over a short span of time. That doesn't mean every student has to go to college. And some colleges are great if they get dual credits during high school. In fact, if you all have students that are in the K-12 space, you should be taking advantage of the dual credit opportunities because the state pays for those credits while you're in the high school space, while your student is in the high school space. So a lot of kids have an associate's degree when they graduate from high school. Some have certainly other credits to go along with it, but it's a great opportunity to prepare yourself for college and for you as parents, cut that cost in half. So at any rate, if you look down on this page, so these are not required, but the honor seal, if you look under enrollments that are going off to college, which by the way, some school districts have already put this in play. They have done so organically. And what I would say is there are many things that can happen in the education space. If there isn't a law that says you can't do it, you can do it. But you certainly want to make sure that you're creating viability for those students when they cross the finish line. So there have been districts that have been doing this for a while. Let me just mention, let me go through this first so you understand where I'm actually coming from. So if you look under enrollment, they have the ability to choose some other things here. You go through it yourself. I'm not going to go through it line by line, but they can complete at least 6 science credits, complete 8 math credits, at least 4 world language and 6 social studies. So it broadens it out from the first page. And if you look at the Honors Plus seal, the bottom one, you look complete 100 hours of work-based learning. One of the things in all 3 of them, or at least 2 of them, I guess not on the third one, demonstrates skill development in the following areas: communication, collaboration, and work ethic. And so what I just said was trying to help students get some we'll use the word real world experience. It came out a number of years ago and still is talked about, but it's the most simple way to say it. So that we have kids that can communicate, that have work ethic, and are able to look someone in the eye and be part of an environment that they may not have been up to that point. Which, by the way, I'll mention one more thing. As we look across the board, I have a sneaking suspicion, and there are a lot of reports out there or statistics that would prove this, I suppose, that cell phones have been a detriment to kids, I think, in a lot of ways, and it's untold at this point in time, I'd say. Now, can we continue to go? That's not catastrophic, and we're going off a ledge or anything, but if you look at where we came from and where they are today, it's night and day. One thing we did this past session, this year in the session in 24 was we didn't ban cell phones, but we restricted them to not be in the classroom during instructional time. They could be utilized for home, or working on homework, or if a teacher decided that they needed to get on the internet and check something, or if there's a medical condition or under emergency purposes, I think are the three things that we allow. And I've had not a plethora of people mention it, but a couple of teachers mentioned to me after about 2 weeks, the kids are starting to interact and verbalize with each other instead of being on their phones texting. And so another thing that we did at the state level to try and mitigate some of that, so there's communication, right? So when students get to the workspace or the workplace, can they look you in the eye? Can they shake your hand and communicate? And so that's part of what we'd like to see out of this work-based learning opportunity for students. And that's really the real meat behind the change, is what I would call apprenticeships or work-based learning opportunities for students while they're in their junior and senior year. In the case, ideally, they would be able to also earn credits for this, right? For not only, like some of us, I don't know about everybody in here, but when I was in high school, I did co-op and got a couple credits for it, but I could have been pushing a broom in a warehouse somewhere. There was no real accountability to it. Was I really getting experience? Maybe work ethic was part of it. Not that you wouldn't get those pieces, but the concept of actually interacting and being a part of much more than just pushing a broom. Could we equate experiential credits to the individual as well? That's on the horizon, but that's a little harder to take care of because we got to measure those things closely, make sure those students have competencies in those specific areas. And so again, that's thinking out of the box, but it's possible. We don't have any laws that say you can't do it. Just a matter of putting something together that's feasible and has some type of accountability to it and a stamp of approval. At any rate, if you move the second one, if you move to employment, so that enrollment, those are kids going to college. Now, if you move over to employment, you see complete additional focused work-based learning, a total of 650 hours in one or more experiences that may include a pre-apprenticeship or a modern youth apprenticeship. Could be a quality work-based learning opportunity as well. What does that mean? 650 hours, and how do you do that in a couple years of high school, the last couple years? It can be done during the summer. It can be done on Saturday and added to it. Just has to make sure it's verified. And it could certainly be done during the school day, maybe afternoons or whatever, and that's going to cause we've got a couple superintendents and it's going to cause a little bit of issue with block scheduling and how kids are able to get out of the classroom and attend a work-based learning opportunity. But what we have currently, some students, whether maybe they go to an hour of an opportunity, well, by the time you get there, you've lost 15 minutes at least, and then you have to leave, you lose another 15 minutes, you got a half an hour. It's no good to the employer and no good to the student. It ultimately is kind of a moot point. And so how do we make those interactions valuable? It's going to take a little bit of flexibility at the K-12 space as well on the superintendents and those who set the scheduling in order to get these things done. And so from a very high level, I have always looked at this thing from day one when I started working on it. I mentioned a piece of legislation that I started a long time ago that didn't get across the finish line. How do we not only create talent, but how do we retain that talent? Let's just talk about Wayne County with the 5 school districts that we have. How do we retain that talent within the 4 walls of the county? And I would simply use this metaphor. I worked at an organization in my life that people came and met each other, and you know, the world was small, about like this room, and pretty soon a couple people got married out of that group. Right? You're only in an area where you function. You learn to function within that area is really what I'm seeing in a very positive way. And so if students have opportunity to get work experience, whether they're heading to college or whether they're going to be an asset to that employer when they finish their high school experience, it's a win for everybody. It's a win for the school, it's a win for the individual, it's a win for the employer, a win for the local economy, and that is the overall viewpoint what we really want to see happen here is giving students the opportunity to actually go out and work, gain high school credits, and gain that experience, gain the work ethic, gain professionalism, learn to interact with folks, and be prepared to continue. From an employer standpoint, to me, it's them participating in their own workforce development. So it's an HR function, if you will. It just doesn't look like everything we've done up to this point. And giving students opportunity is really where it's at. And so employers now then fall into the function of being able to participate in creating their own workforce and their own workforce development within the four walls of their organization. And I'm going to share a quick comment from Brian, one of the folks that's on the chamber here, Ballinger, who owns Wise and Hunt Construction. He took a young man from Western Wayne under his wing in August of this year, and he said in the 5th week of the internship, the student was assigned with the task of reading and becoming familiar with the current subcontract that Wise and Hunt issues to all their subcontractors. The assignment included the challenge of determining a circumstance that could arise that would leave Wise and Hunt exposed to a legal challenge that it could not defend. So here he's taking a 12th grader, and he's going to review a legal contract and see if there's holes in it that might put him at risk. Who, by the way, the contract was created by an attorney. It's probably a cookie cutter, cut and paste one, I suppose. Within 45 minutes, the student returned with a scenario that I could not answer. He prompted a conversation with their attorney to address the scenario, and as a result of the consultation, we modified the legal document to protect the company. So a 17, 18-year-old young man looked at that document with no legal expertise whatsoever. Exceptional, granted. Young man's exceptional, right? And says, hey, this could be a possible scenario, and so they modified their contract forever. So there are some gems out there, there's no doubt about it, that are off the charts. And the benefit for that young man, whether he continues to work with Brian or not, his confidence level went off the moon, right? And so setting him up for success, incredible. One of the other things that we're in the process of doing as well, in complement to this, is career coaching. And so in the school system, our counselor-student ratio is not what it needs to be. In fact, it's probably half what it needs to be in the state, I guess. Now, to be honest with you all, I reviewed degree granting organizations for counselors. We do that much in-depth work. Go back and look the past 6 or 8 years to see how many counselors we're creating inside Indiana to try to fill that pipeline to help the school districts have counselors available. And while we're doing good, we're still not able to cover everything that's needed. And so our concept this past session was, well, why don't we create a third party that would actually contractually go in and help with not counseling, but career coaching, so that piece of the puzzle would fall into this. Because I think and it was that way when I was in school, and I don't think it's a whole lot different again, but giving kids the opportunity to maybe take an aptitude test or have some experiential opportunity to, whether maybe they come to your facility and work and they decide this is a great thing, it's what I want to do, or this is not what I want to do. That's a win for everybody, for them especially, because honestly, what drives me every day to continue to do what I do with all the flack I get because of some of the things we do, which is okay, is making sure that kids, the light bulb goes on, right? This is really what I was designed to do, and I'm going to be this, or I'm going to be that. Now, it's not, that's idealistic, and it's not always that easy, but that's my desire. It makes no difference if you're, you know, an A+ student or somebody on the bottom of the list, or you're red, yellow, black, or white, big, small, smart, not smart. Makes no difference. Helping them figure out how they function in society, not only through that, but then experientially out on the ground. And so that's basically the desire for what we're aiming for here as the state of Indiana. As I mentioned, we are we're leading across the United States. A lot of folks are looking at Indiana saying, what are these guys doing over there? And it's simply alignment. We got a Secretary of Education who's incredibly forward-thinking and a great leader. If you haven't met her, some of these guys I'm sure have. Her personality, if she was in the Lucas Oil Stadium, would fill the stadium. She just has an incredible personality and very forward-thinking. And so I would say, you know, if there's some old sayings that I have. I think, you know, if we always do what we always done, we always get what we always got. How do we move forward with this massive 1 million students, 65,000 teachers, and 200 and let's just say 300 for the sake of ease schools across the state of Indiana? How do we affect change in a systematic way that bolsters the life of those students and the economy in Indiana? And I think we've landed in a space that's a sweet spot. It's going to take some pushing and pulling, some out-of-the-box thinking, both from the employer standpoint and from the K-12 space and higher ed, for that matter. Everybody at the table trying to help us get to the other side. It will help the local economy, it'll help the individual, it'll help the state's economy. In fact, we're doing some of this even in higher ed, they tell me. I don't know if we're doing it here necessarily in Richmond, but in a governor's workforce cabinet meeting a couple of months, it was probably in August, I guess. I mentioned it, right? If we bring talent in from outside the state or got talent students in and create talent, help create talent within their lives, if we give them opportunity to work with while they're getting their bachelor's degree or associate's degree, whatever it is, within that field or something that meaningful to them, we just exponentially increase the opportunity for them to stay in Indiana, right? And so create talent, keep talent, honestly. And so there are many ways. These are just some real simplistic, common sense ways that we can help kids see the relevance of education and pay attention, and we see better outcomes. One of the other things that we're struggling with, and I could give you a lot of negative things, but that's not what we're here for. Not a ton of negative things, but even chronic absenteeism we struggle with in the K-12 space right now. And you can actually see on a longitudinal graph since 20, it was up, came down a bit, now it's back up again across the board. So this will bring the other piece we're hopeful is, again, from an idealistic standpoint, some relevance for those students and what they're doing in their lives, right? And so from a comprehensive look at this thing, we believe everybody wins in the end. Everybody's not going to participate in it because that's impossible. It'd be great if they did. That'd be my heart or our desire. And it's going to take some, as I mentioned, push and pull. I hope that as we move forward in this thing in a decade, it could be cultural for us. It's going to take that long, or it could take longer actually, just because it's a lot of change. And so that's kind of the whole thing in a nutshell. Bringing employers to the table. Can students do apprenticeships or quality work-based learning that they can get experience or credits for and get paid for while they're in their junior and senior year? Become employees of that individual's place or that organization, hopefully a portion of them. I look at it from a dollar and cents standpoint and say if Jason's got a business and he takes 10 students and 5 of them go down the road and 5 of them stay, he still won. Working at creating his own workforce development, honestly. And so the other thing is, I'll say that I just thought of, Western Wayne has been working with EDC in Wayne County. And so the collaboration community-wide is incredibly important as well, across the board. The communication, the community, EDC, parents, employers. What do employers need today? We don't. I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but it is not a negative nick. I remember talking to, this is probably 5 or 6 years ago, talking to a teacher and said, we don't do that. We're not worried about what they do. We draw the line in the sand, we graduate them, and that's our responsibility. I agree. But is that really the best thing for students today? Can we get involved in the workspace with employers and help them get experience, and not just give them what we've always done, the cookie cutter approach, and send them across the finish line? Not negative, just dead serious about the comment. A couple times that's been shared with me. So that said, I'll open it up for questions, but the legislation is set in stone. We gave the department a line in the sand. This is when it had to be done, and so the state board will have that done, as I mentioned, I think it's December 12th, if I'm not mistaken, December or something. And then it'll be law, and we'll move in that direction. What it will create, because it's not totally, when you get to the second page, these are not requirements, these are things that schools could participate in. So I'm gonna look at the schools and say schools are gonna decide whether or not they participate in that part or not. And we don't mandate it, we're just setting the stage for it. And my hope is that every school district will, in Wayne County and every county in the state, participate in it. If you choose to, that's great. There are schools, as I mentioned, that have been doing it for a long time. In fact, a couple more tidbits. In Elkhart County, where all the camper world is, where they build all the campers up there, they've been working with an organization out of CareerWise, the name of it, out of Colorado, that started this a long time ago, and a guy that the first time I was exposed to probably 2015 in Denver. A guy that was a plastics injection molding company just took a kid off the street and said, I want to help you, and this whole thing kind of blew up from there. And they've been helping Elkhart, created a CareerWise Indiana versus CareerWise Colorado, and they're absolutely knocking it out of the park up there. They needed workers, they didn't have them, so they went to the high school and picked them out, juniors and seniors, and gave them opportunity to work, and now they're doing it flat out. Been going on for a number of years. Paul Ketchum down in Batesville, some of you guys will know, the superintendents might know him, he's a superintendent down there. Same thing, just out of the box, started it, made it work. George Philhauer, Western Wayne, moved over to Eastern Hancock. He's got it going on over there right now. I don't know if it was existing when he moved over there, when he left us, but it's not easy. It's forward thinking, and we think it's the future, and we're betting on it. I guess, how's that? So, any questions? Go ahead, Jason.
Okay, yeah, sure. Thanks for presenting. So, one, as an employer, this is, I think there's a lot of opportunity here. The more that we can get our students, our kids, our future excited about career pathways that exist within our county, thinking specifically about Reed, whether it's as a nurse, or it's working in IT, or it's working in some kind of supply chain, whatever it might be, so that we don't have to go from outside our community to try to recruit, but we can essentially grow our own, which is what I see as a grow our own strategy. But I am curious, as far as work-based learning, so a lot of employers around the room, can you help define what work-based learning means so the employers might understand what their role would be in this?
Sure. So in an ideal world, words matter. So when we use the word internship, that's an old word, and that's essentially, or job shadowing. That's not what we're talking about. I'd rather call it a work-based learning or an apprenticeship. An apprenticeship's a little more formal. It could be sanctioned by the federal government, or it doesn't necessarily have to be. It could be created, I guess, if you will. But in an ideal world, those students would be paid for their work for the employer. And there had been some concern about liability and workman's comp. And so we filled that piece. We went out and came out of Kentucky, the Indiana State Chamber, actually, that was their job, and found an insurer that would come alongside if a company's current insurance carrier would not give opportunity for that, then you could go outside the system and do so. So that's one of the barriers. I think that's kind of could be based on insurance companies, right? But partially a misnomer, I'd say. But that goes along with the concept of actually being on the job and being paid. Still got to live by OSHA standards, whatever the age of the student is, right? I'm looking at Tony at RP&L. What could a student do there? Is, you know, as you build your own pipeline, can they be out working on, you know, I don't know. I doubt it, but you know.
Got one working as a mechanic right now, Stu.
Did? Yeah, that's awesome. And so there, I think actually Richmond's got, they've been working with Belden as well, yeah, with some things, yeah. So I'm familiar with that. But we're gonna formalize it a little bit. And so again, quality work-based learning, I would say, is an opportunity. It's not just you're not just gonna go push a broom. There's gonna be, there needs to be some meat to it. And so how that all works out yet, we're not 100% sure, but as well, you know, as I mentioned, to learn experiential credits for their high school diploma, it's gonna have to be checked by somebody and set. Employers actually probably need a liaison that would be the person that would work with these students. So an employer would create a program essentially. And I'll tell you the best example of it is A House Tool. Kevin's dad, Rick, did this years and years ago, and his comments to me were back in the day when Richmond was booming with metalworking, and you know, all the secondary union shops were operating, and he said we didn't have any choice. Even though we knew we were going to lose some of these guys, right? We bring them in as an apprentice, we train them, they'd stick around for a while, and then the next day they walked across the street and got a job and got 10 cents more an hour, you know. And so that's why I say the 50-50 piece, and use that. You're going to lose some, no doubt, but look, and you can take what I would consider for Jeff as a moral responsibility to help kids get to the piece where they're running at 100% because they're actually doing what they were created to do, versus you know, not participating in it. But you look at what I'm sure, like Reed, you guys spending a great deal of money, especially the higher up the food chain you go, for every employee you bring on board.
Yeah, absolutely. And for nursing, just for everyone's awareness here, it costs us $10,000 to recruit on average. That's what it costs us. So the more we can grow those from within, the better.
And you got it going on with Ivy Tech and IU East here. No reason why you can't use that pipeline for sure. So we're in a good space in Wayne County when it comes to that. Most counties don't have both Ivy Tech and IU in their backyard. So to do that. One other simple example, there's a guy over in Lebanon that created a space where, coming back to some of what Tony does, for like the trades. And so a kid will start as a junior, and he has different stations where they'll nail studs, cut them, and you know, make walls for homes, do electrical work, do HVAC work, a couple other stations, and they have to go do a round robin multiple times during the year. And when they come back in their senior year, they have to choose, okay, I want to be an electrician. So they focus on electrician maybe 50% of the time, but they still have to do the round robin a few times, because we know it's not all that easy. And if we asked everybody in this room how you got in your current position, and is that really what floats your boat, I hope you all, most are in that place, but how many times and how many other things did you do to get there, right? And so just making sure that there's ample opportunity that kids get all the experience that they potentially can to function. Again, for employers, it's a way to bolster the local economy, participate in your own workforce development, teach those kids the way that you actually do it. You may not do, there's certainly standards like electrical work, whatever, but how do you actually function internally? And so you've already taught that individual all those things that the onboarding process would end up costing you money to do. So this stuff excites me, honestly.
Anybody else?
Jeff, you said this was going to be a
approved, you wanna get it approved by December?
Correct.
Is that right?
Yeah.
When would it go, when are you foreseeing it implemented?
So in the-
25, 26?
25, 26 is the first year.
First year.
For freshmen or for seniors?
Freshman. Yeah. Yeah, it
But
starts
is-
with a
But it
cohort.
would be immediately applicable, so if you guys have a kid
Yeah.
that
It
has
doesn't-
met these requirements,
right.
they can graduate with this diploma as early as 25. This year, no, 26, right, Senator Raatz?
Correct. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
We have kids that, almost 25% of our graduating class in 25 will have the Indiana College Core, thanks to our partnership with Ivy Tech and IDEs. So this is something that excites us, these seals. That was what I want to thank the senator and his colleagues for, was this has been an iterative process. The first draft, no offense, was not great.
Yeah.
Got a lot of feedback on that, and we're smart enough to say, yep, we're gonna fix this, and the seals really helped fix that. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Hicks, I'm the superintendent of Northeastern Wayne Schools, but I'm also Peter's dad, class of 26, Thomas's dad, class of 27, and Abigail's dad, class of 29. So when I sit in these meetings, this isn't hypothetical, like John's kids graduate in that same window, so when we do this work, this isn't like other people's kids, this is literally our kids. And the thing that we've started to bring online at Northeastern is we have opportunities for kids. We have a partnership with Hills, where by their senior year, they're gonna make a wage, and when they're done, if they wanna go to work for Hills, great, that'll be good for them. If they don't, they already have manufacturing experience, and I don't know if you guys know this, but we've got some manufacturing here in Richmond, Indiana. So it's a chance for those kids to go do that work. And we've talked, we're gonna work to get the same sort of pipeline built with Reed. Anyone else who's interested in building, I don't wanna speak for the other superintendent in the room, but I know they're interested. I know the other school districts are interested, but we're trying to do it, so that we can build out and meet kids' interests. So one year we may have a kid that fits in your business, one year we may not, but the other, school districts in the county will. So we're all very open to this. We all very much want to get our kids out into that area, but we also know, I was just looking at a graphic yesterday, it hangs on our wall in our middle school, and it shows where all the academic institutions in the state of Indiana are. Well, if you're in Union County, there is not an academic institution, a higher ed institution, so they're coming to IU East. But also, if you're in Union County, their manufacturing base is less than ours in Wayne County. So we've got to have a regional approach to this as K-12, because there's no way we want to leave our even more rural counterparts. We're rural, but then there's rural, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? So we want to make sure all of those folks have a chance to come in and be a part of this work. So just know, reach out to us. We are building these coalitions right now, and we have some in place where we have our own pipeline internal. I think most of the school districts have their own pipeline up and running, because you all need workers, but guess what? We all need workers too. So we're trying to make sure we're building that.
Do you have any teacher apprenticeships happening?
We've been very fortunate. Our partnership with IU East, I cannot tell you how much we appreciate it. They like to call us IU East North. And so
Don't say that in front of everybody, somebody's gonna come kill for
we
you.
work to, we'll get kids in internships while they're in their freshman, sophomore year in college, maintain that relationship, have them come work for us as TAs, and then we have started to hire them as teachers when they're done. We're working on developing an early childhood pathway with our own preschool so that we can do the same thing. That's under development.
Explain to everybody why the relationship is so crucial to you, and why it costs Union County, because they're rural.
Well, we have a 6-mile difference between our campus and IU East campus and Ivy Tech's campus, so our kids have the chance to interact, and vice versa. And if you're an IU East student and you're living in the apartments here in town, and you have the choice between coming to Northeastern or even Centerville or anywhere in the county, or driving to Liberty or parts even further afield, they're gonna choose us, and we're closer to the amenity. So we feel very fortunate that they listened to us. The other thing that they did that I don't think a lot of people realize, years ago, I think it's been 4 years ago, you came to us and said, what can we do to make this a more dovetailed experience for our students so that they can learn at IUEs and still work for you during the day. And they took their classes, spread them out across the week, put them in the evenings so that someone could come and be a teaching assistant for us, get real world experience, and then go and take their classes to become a teacher. So it cannot put a price on that relationship and the work that they've done to help facilitate our field. We want to be able to do that for your field. Like that's what I'm saying.
Do you pay those teachers assistants when they're as a teacher assistant?
Oh yeah, they wouldn't come from there.
I just want to make sure that's part of the conversation, yeah, because that's important, honestly, to me, because it shows the employers putting some of their skin on the table, looking for something in return, so it puts some onus on them as well to be good actors in the equation, and it's important for the students as well. Jason?
So I'm gonna weigh on that just a little bit. So I think, I'm excited to see as many employers around the table along with educators today. And just from an employer perspective, I think we have a great opportunity to engage with our K-12, our K-14, our higher ed partners in a way that we haven't before. So this is just me speaking, this is gonna require a lot of work, a lot of dialogue, but it's important work and important dialogue. So when you think about, Dr. Hicks is saying, for us to sit down, and we've already had this conversation before we started, like what do we need as a healthcare provider and system? Whether it's nursing or it's IT or whatever it is, so we can develop those pathways and have a relationship where you're helping us, solve a problem, and we're also helping you solve a problem. And most of all, we're helping our kids, right? We're helping give our kids something to look forward to and something that's meaningful when at the end of all of this. But it's gonna require a lot of dialogue on our part. So just for whatever it's worth, when those educators call you all, employers, please answer that call and please have that conversation. We're gonna have that conversation. We're committed to this. And I'm hopeful that the rest of us around the table are too, because it's gonna require that.
I want to follow up on that too, just from an association standpoint. Indiana Bankers Association is getting together. So if you are involved, if your employer is involved in an association that can streamline this and can make it homogeneous amongst the state, get involved, start talking to your associations about it. I know, like they said, the IBA is really moving forward with this. We've already got a good foundation of education, of leadership, of training, so that fits right into what we can show them as an employer. So I just engage any associations that you're involved in.
That's a great point, Paul, because I didn't mention that, but so some of us were fortunate enough to spend a little bit of time in Switzerland. Some folks went this year, I did last year, and it's cultural. It's 25 years they've been at this over there, and one of the most incredible things happened the first night we were there in this little teeny restaurant, because the buildings are not that big. There was probably 15 of us around the table, something like that. A delegation from Nepal, from Ukraine, there was 2 other countries plus us. There were 5 nations represented, and the chair from the House, the education chairman, my buddy, said, "Is there an intern or not intern, an apprentice in the place?" I said, "Yeah, there's one. She's in the back." She comes out in 5 minutes. She's a much different than the United States. She's happy and proud to be part of customer service in a restaurant, and it's incredible. It's a cultural thing, I'm guessing, but she articulates to 5 different nations is beautiful as it could possibly be, and she's a server. And her family was all people that were in the service industry, and so it was incredible. But someday when it becomes cultural, then we'll start have to thinking about the next piece and how we improve again. But I agree wholeheartedly. The community piece is huge. You're absolutely right. The Indiana Bankers Association has jumped in head first. They are absolutely on board and going to create talent for the state of Indiana, or help create talent for the banking industry. One of the things that there are multiple ways to do this stuff as well. In Switzerland, they have a manufacturing facility that multiple companies put their money on the table, and they created a centralized place for these kids to learn. So, but they all have, let's just say they each own a quarter of the building and all the machinery that's in there. And the beauty of it is, now this is not a nick on any education institution, but they need people that know what the equipment's doing today, not 5 years ago, not 10 years ago, not a donated piece of equipment, to And that is hard for us to keep up in the education space with technology. And that's not negative, it's just the truth, because it's so incredibly expensive. But they have kids from multiple schools that come to that place, and they start off, they're machinists, but they start off as an engineer, and learn how to read prints and everything, and then they move to the next, and before they're done, they're running a CNC. And so they've mastered it over there in a lot of respects, but associations are, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I didn't think about it. Associations, or even created associations, honestly, with multiple employers that get together and say, hey, we really need, we all equivalently, some equitable way, come together and say, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna take kids from every school in the community and create talent.
Your associations, wherever they might be, can also help to, and some of those issues that you might have, for example, age requirements,
Right.
what they're able to do, your associations might be able to help you with some of those things as well. We're working with ours as well. We're working with IHA, and a lot of other hospitals. For example, just as a weird thing, for example, right now, the way it works, a student can't enter an LPN program until they have a high school diploma, right? We're working with our association to see, can we get that requirement removed so that a senior in high school can go ahead and enter into the LPN program, even though they technically haven't graduated? Because that's just a rule, because it doesn't need to be there. And so that way we can grab that, if that can be removed, we can graduate high school students as a senior as an LPN, which means they can come work for us, and then they can go and continue at IUEs to get a BSN, whatever it might be. So, but we need our association's help to be able to get that done. We can't do it on our own. So those kinds of things, those are conversations that as employers we can have for our associations.
Yes, sir.
So Jeff, this matches some of the conversations happening in higher ed right now. So there's really two big pressures in higher ed. One is to shorten the time of completion. So the Higher Learning Commission, creditor for Bethany, IUEs, and Earlham, they just moved and are approving a 90 credit bachelor's degree, taking a year off, right? So there's this compression happening. The second piece is competency-based education or credit for prior learning, which is impacting all of us. And that really questions kind of, what's relevant today. So as you're thinking about those pieces within higher ed, and then the pressure always moves down, now hitting the K-12 space, standards of learning are really important, and objectives, so that if a student goes into any space, they know exactly, one, the employer knows what should be learned, and the student knows what they're gonna be learning, and the educational institution knows what that student is learning so that it fits into a degree. So standards of learning and very clear objectives. One of the questions that I hear that's rumbling around, so there's continuity in this thought all the way up to higher ed,
Yep.
is that there's a lot of choice for the student now with these electives. So what guidelines is the state providing on how do we build appropriate business relationships so that we don't end up with a kid pushing a broom and getting credit? And how do we continue to recruit teachers to serve what is a new core? And the classes may not be changing dramatically, but because of student choice, that's gonna direct the hours. And so has the state been thinking through how do you produce guidelines for, one, these business relationships? The concern I know from the chamber is that you may end up having all these kids that want to go out into the workforce, and we don't have the jobs to provide, and so we're going to fail in that follow through. But then also teachers, and I'm married to one who teaches French, and she's wondering in 5 years, if there's this push to the workforce and fewer students than taking the electives now that are world's languages, will she have a job in Indiana? I tell her, Kim, you're gonna have a job in Indiana because you're a great teacher. But I think that's a concern that's rumbling around. How can we help with the anxiety?
And those are great questions that I don't have total answers for, to be frank about it, because world languages are now,
They're electives.
Yeah, they're electives, exactly, they're not required. So, there's some concern, and we'll see what the latest piece that comes from, the stage that this thing is. What we did in the General Assembly is the legislation required, the state board to have this thing done by the end of this year. So they're gonna meet it by December 15th or whatever that date is. A lot of conversation, but you're absolutely right. That the arts, I would say, is another problem that people are thinking, well, what about this? What if kids are not gonna have opportunity to being banned, or, you know, they're gonna choose a career over French or whatever. And I don't have great answers for you. You know, it's gonna be up to the kids. And so my question back would be, do we say, okay, you can do this or you can do that, it's up to you. Does that come at a detriment to you somewhere along the way? It could, right? So I can't deny that at all. I totally get it. It's not gonna be perfect. The rollout of this thing is gonna be a little bit bumpy. There's no two ways about it. One of the things at the state levels, we don't wanna legislate in the minutia so that we stop ingenuity from happening out on the ground, whether it's with the school district or the employer or the community, so that you know, opportunity is there. I don't like to do that. I really don't like to legislate down at the bottom level. So you come here, you gotta turn left, and you come there, you gotta turn right. That doesn't do us good at all. So that was something I learned.
Can I have a follow-up?
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I don't want you to legislate me like that. So the third-party contract for career services, how well is that developed? Because I see those individuals as being key in kind of helping to steer students, and both they'll steer them towards things, and they may steer them away from things, and more balance could be created in the system depending upon the focus of those career counselors. So can you say anything about how?
So that just rolled out. There might be somebody in here that is in the middle of doing it. What we did was, it was actually a portion that I put in. There was 10 million and 15 million, 10 million in the first year and then 15 million this year. But it all got done at once because it took them a year to get the program kind of put together. So for that, the sustainability of that is part of an issue because you know, we're looking at a tight budget this year in Indiana. I don't want to cut it. I'm being realistic. Have we mastered it yet? The answer is no. I don't think so. If I can find enough time in my schedule, I'm going to travel around the state and visit everybody that got money and see what they're actually doing, so that we get a pretty good idea.
But you asked if anybody is doing it. We are participating in the career coaching grant. And our career coach is meeting with students, and we're working through the RIASEC, formerly known as the Holland Colors. And kids get to figure out what their preferences are, what their strengths are. And that's really the work we're in. We're so early into it that we're not ready to say, you should really start thinking about going to read for this kind of career, you should think about going into manufacturing for this type of career. Right now, it's what do you like, what do you don't like, what are you thinking about, what are things that you haven't thought about. That's really where we are in the coaching cycle. But you're not wrong. As the coaching skill grows, and the longer we do it, eventually we're going to be sitting down with kids that are sophomore, junior year of high school, and they're going to say to us, I'm a social, I'm an investigator, and I'm an entrepreneur. That's me, by the way. I'm all those. And they're going to say, what career should I consider? And our career coach is going to say, well, according to the RIASEC codes and Indiana's Hot 100 jobs, these are the things that dovetail into that, so you should consider these things. I don't think we ever have, and I don't think we ever will tell a kid, this is the only thing you can do. But I do think we're gonna see some of the historical careers shift a little bit into the new age. I think that's going to happen. But as someone who took 4 years of foreign language, and my favorite teacher in high school was a foreign language teacher, I think there's still gonna be space for that. But it's gonna be interesting.
I know we're running short on time, and we could probably sit here all afternoon and talk about the education of our children, how it impacts our community, how it impacts our state. What would you say, if there's further questions or concerns, what should we do? How do we reach out? What should we do?
Great question. What we could do is, I'd be happy to give you my card, I just don't have it with me at the moment. But what we could do is if you got a pad, we could, as you exit, if you're interested, give me your.
Just put a check mark next to their name.
That'd be great. Is there email addresses with them?
No, but I can pull them out.
Okay, because that's as long as I got your permission, and then what I'll do is send out an email and just say, here, if you have any additional questions, you're more than free to weigh in on where it's at. But again, thank you all so much. Thanks, Paul, for providing the room and all you all with the interest. Dovetailing with higher ed, and there's a lot that has to be done. We probably have tackled about 50% of it, maybe 60%, I hope. But it's exciting, though, for me. It's easy to get out of bed every day thinking we're on the preface of changing how K-12 is done in Indiana. And one very last comment, one of my colleagues in the Senate said, why do we have to be the first one? Well, you either lead or follow or get the heck out of the way, and so we're gonna lead.
Melissa, I'd be remiss if I didn't give the final comments to you.
Thanks so much for, again, Senator Raatz, for coming and sharing the information that you have with us and allowing for some feedback. I do know that there are additional conversations that will be had in smaller groups with superintendents and kind of working through some of this, as well as some training that will be coming from Forward Wayne County for employers on how to establish a good internship or apprenticeship program. And then, yes, I agree with Paul, the associations are a great resource. So we will likely be putting together a survey to send out to all of our chamber members to get some information on what they are doing already, if anything, and what their needs are, so that we can be poised to step into this next school year as prepared as possible. So if you have any further comments or follow-up, feel free to email me or any of our team, and we will add it to our list. Have a great day.
Very last comment to the employers in here. The program was designed with an intermediary so that not every superintendent or every director from all the school districts be knocking on your door, knowing that you can handle one person, right? And that person's job would then be to split things up and have a conversation with the school districts, because that will kill the program as well, right? Unless the employer's gonna hire somebody to do that full time. But that's part of it, and it became legislation, and I do believe there's an intermediary for over here. I just don't know who it is off the top of my head.
Eastern Indiana Works.
Yeah. Gus Lindy out of Delaware. Okay.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you for
Thank
your
you all. Thanks for your
dedication.
attention, for sure.
You're welcome.